Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Objective brought to you by the Ayn Rand Center UK. Today, we have our Thursday collective, and we have a larger group than usual. And two guys who I think are entertaining and very intelligent are going to bring a lot to the table. But before we get to our sort of open topic Thursday, I have some news to report. Of course, everybody knew that Trump predicted an indictment and a possible arrest on Tuesday from was it Alvin Bragg? Was that his name? The attorney general there for Manhattan, for New York there. He was a day off, but it actually happened. And you're getting the breaking news here first, folks. Daniel, can you please post the picture? This was on a news site recently. He was perp walked, folks. The former president of the United States was perp walked, and it wasn't pretty. As you can see, he fought, and he fought not very well. So for all of those who have been expecting this indictment to come down the pike, it happened. He has been arrested. You can be happy now. You finally got him. And guess what? That's fake news. This is an AI-generated series of pictures, folks. But if you have the fantasy that Trump should be arrested and you'd like to play that out, you now have pictorial evidence for yourself. Enjoy. Fake news.
Wow.
Paul, did you get surprised?
I was surprised. I was all set to do my remark about there's nothing like weaponizing the judicial system against your political opponents, but I realized I have the wrong target. The right target is the misuse of AI.
Right? See,
right.
This is very scary. I think these narratives can be generated now by AI, and we're in trouble. Maybe AI is more malignant than we objectivists give it credit for.
A brave new world that has such deception possibilities in it. Yeah.
It gives new meaning to the concept of my truth.
My truth. We could do a whole episode on that nonsense. Just the phrase, my truth, your perspective, your opinion, your experience, your take on the thing, your perspective perhaps, but your truth? No, that concept
your
is
truth in woke language is now called lived experience, which is greater on the truth scale than actual facts, as we know. But folks, we are doing an open discussion Thursday on this collective, where we've each brought a couple of topics, one or two topics that we want to talk about. Hopefully it'll stimulate some improvisational conversation. Will take us in all the wrong directions and get us into all kinds of trouble, which we really like here on the Daily Objective. I hope you're listening, Grazi. Why don't we start with you, James? You have a topic. Tell us about it and why we should be talking about it.
Well, today a news item hit the all the basic news services. 22 state attorneys general in the United States have sent a letter to auto manufacturers like Hyundai and Kia, saying that they are responsible for the increase in auto thefts. Now, these are older model Hyundais and Kias, mind you, that they're suing over, where there was inferior security before the recent crime wave broke out. But the government that's responsible for enforcing auto theft laws is now blaming the manufacturer for having inadequate security. And it recently came up, they were complaining about this since last year, because a TikTok video, get this, a TikTok video appeared showing how easy it was to rip off these cars, break into them, steal material from these cars. And based on this TikTok video, which is allowed to be out there by TikTok, showing people how to rip off cars, that made it very easy. And the minute the video came out, there was a spike in thefts of Kias and Hyundais. And instead of thinking about maybe the government's role in all this in terms of being the people behind law enforcement, once more, it's the evil corporate actors who were responsible for not anticipating years earlier this sudden spike in crime that we're having right now. And it's their fault. It's not And now get this, mind you, of course, the fact that they had cheaper security meant the price was lower. And so Kia says, okay, we'll give you the upgrade on security, but of course it'll cost you. How dare Kia and Hyundai ask the consumer of the car to actually pay for the security features on their own car? Goodness gracious, we can't have that. It's just the quintessential example most recently of how corporations are inherently evil. They're responsible for every anticipated or unanticipated problem that we might face. None of us as individuals are responsible for the security of our own vehicles. No, no, no. It's not on me to put in some new security system if I want it, if I live in a bad neighborhood, if I don't have a garage or something. No, no, it's not on me. It's on Kia, mind you, who is trying to sell as cheap a car as possible. This is madness. This is absolute madness. Corporations are the bad guys, and built into the whole idea. I just find this morally and emotionally repulsive on so many levels.
Paul, ain't government grand? What do you think of that?
You know, I think it's clearly not the role of government to enforce the laws, or they would behave differently. I think given who they are, there's basically two options: either sue the victims or declare that there's no such thing as right and wrong, or in fact, support the people who are doing the thefts. If we've got, I think there are cities in California where if you loot $500 or less from a store, you can't be prosecuted. You can't even be chased out of the store.
900.
Excellent. So the principle, of course, is the same, whether it's 900 or 50,000 or whatever. So if the theft of $900 worth of goods is not something that the government should be interested in, why in God's name should it give a crap about going against car theft? Why not just say that certain cars you can steal for free? Other cars will give you a bonus from the government if you steal them, because we don't like those cars because they're gas guzzlers. We have dinosaurs in order to fuel this, and because of cows, we're about to have climate change that's going to drown us all. So you guys are focusing in the wrong place. Focus your rage at the dinosaurs and flatulent cows.
Hey, Paul, wait a minute. You know, there's somebody in the San Francisco legislature who's listening to you right now and taking this very seriously. I want you to know they will be passing a law, probably codifying exactly these specifications. So be careful, my friend, for what you wish for.
It is the problem with satire.
That's it. What is a joke becomes the reality 10 years later. Honestly, I mean, I've lived long enough to see that actually take place. So, yeah.
What would we do without
when James is telling this story, I'm just getting furious. And even though I had a preview of it before we went on, and the most enraging thing to me about this is that this isn't so outrageous to everybody who hears it that they don't immediately go, we're screwing up. This is not what government is for. We need to go back to our premises and go, what is the purpose of this incredibly powerful body that we have enabled to imprison us, to fine us, and to, in certain cases, shoot at us or execute us? What is their purpose if they can't do the most basic functions of protecting our rights to life, liberty, and property? What in God's name are they there for, aside from the fact that we get to pay taxes to them and express our fealty at the altar of state worship?
Yeah, whatever those premises are, I don't think the current people that occupy offices at the state or federal level understand what they are. Other than, I think they've replaced them with their own premises, right? The premises that they can do whatever they want. They're the political class. They fly above us all. We have some super chats real quick from Jonathan Honig, $4.99. Thank you, Jonathan, for always being a supporter. Robert Nacier for $2. Your message here. Okay, like that. Nacier again for another $2. Coffee for the guys. Thank you. I could use some coffee. I was working till 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm tired. Jeff Bannister for $5.50 Canadian. Nothing but that. Just the monetary support. You got to love it. Ali Beard, member for 11 months. Reminds me of the Democrat that tried to ban the video game franchise from Rockstar's Grand Theft Auto because of carjackings, like they didn't exist previous to that. Yeah, you know, we got to blame the man. The hairy hand of corporate America has got its fist upon our throats, and our government is our savior, and we are their wards. What do you got to say, Paul? You have a topic for discussion today?
I do. As objectivists, we don't believe in unchosen obligations, but in real life, some of us don't 100% live up to those precepts. We might feel an obligation where theoretically we shouldn't. So I was thinking, if you were Superman with all of Superman's powers, would you feel a sense of obligation? So you have invulnerability, you have super speed, you have incredible strength, you can fly. You see crimes being committed all around. There's the purse snatchers, there's the little things like cats up a tree, which are probably not criminal, although I'm sure there'll be a law against it shortly. So you just want to have an evening with Lois Lane. You want to have an hour of amorous exchange with her. You want to get close to a human being because you're an alien and you're like that. You find out that somebody's committing a minor crime down the street. Is this going to kill the mood? What would you guys do?
Well, Superman's so fast, he could probably zip out, fix the crime, come back, and not miss a beat with his date with Lois, right?
That's a very good point, and I'm so sorry you brought it up because it kind of destroys the question. So let me just alter the question slightly.
I'm more interested in something that's probably can't be mentioned on air right now, but how that love arrangement actually works out between somebody who is the man of steel with a just a poor benighted human being. That's got to be a rough night for Lois, as far as I'm concerned, no matter how gentle the man tries to be.
Science fiction writer Larry Niven actually wrote a short story about that, discussing the horrible things that would happen were he to reach a point of no return in his lovemaking.
Yeah.
I have theories that involve
Superman letting go. I mean,
that's
think about
right.
it, you know.
I'm thinking of Kryptonian condoms. That's the only way I can see this problem.
I knew we were going to go somewhere where no man has gone before.
I was thinking about this because ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be Superman because I wanted to look great in tights. And I think, what I really want, though, is to be a poet. If I'm Superman, am I going to be able to take off 8 hours a day just to write those sonnets that the world is desperate for? Or am I going to feel so bad, even though it's an unchosen obligation, that I'm going to go, God damn it, there's got to be a time when I'm actually out helping people. So I just wondered if you guys would have an emotional feeling of, yeah, I probably should do something. Or you'd go, no, God damn it, I don't have any unchosen obligations and I'm not choosing that.
Yeah,
I would have the latter, even though I'm Superman, but I would enjoy beating up bad guys. That's sort of just in my DNA. You know, I have to say there is a comic book written about a Soviet Superman. Have you read it, Paul?
I have not.
It's apparently under the Soviet Superman. The Soviet Union works out flawlessly. It's perfect because he's able to stop injustice at everywhere all over the Soviet Union. It's the only time this Soviet Union worked out, folks, was in a comic book with Superman helming the state.
I love that. Truth, justice, and the Pravda way.
For perfectly selfish reasons, if I had the powers of Superman, I would devote some of that, because, I mean, look at the scope of his powers. I would only need to work part-time, I think, to solve so many of the world's problems, right? You could take out jihadists over here. You could take out, a military intervention over there. Iran will never get nukes. And that could be a part-time, thing for me. And I could spend, like maybe just the weekends doing that. And, my, 9-to-5 job, Monday to Friday, I'd be a poet if that was it. I would never impose upon Clark Kent or Superman the duty to go save the world, but I might point out to Clark Kent or Superman the selfish benefits that might accrue to using some of his extraordinary powers for truth, justice, and the American way. So
I tell you what I would do. I'd go right over to Putin and challenge him to a judo or sambo match right off the bat in front of his whole people, in front of a stadium filled with true believers, and then just bust them up real good in public. That would make me feel really good. Hey, Robert Nasir again for $5. Today's life on Earth is almost certain to be a train wreck. Join me at 6 p.m. Eastern for on danger, virtue, value, strength in the 21st century. Now that sounds very interesting. I hope I'm reading.
That does. And we
Ashley,
can't take our eyes off a wreck. So that doesn't frighten me away, Mr. Nasser. That actually, of course, will train my eyes on your wreck.
train wreck sold me. You had me at train. Ashley shrugged for $1.99. This episode rules. That's all. Thanks, guys. Well, thank you, Ashley, and thank you for that awesome T-shirt you gave me too. That boxing T-shirt, I love it. I've been wearing it. I'm just saying. James, do you want to have another topic? Because I think my topic sort of sucks, and I think your topics are really entertaining and fun. So I want to just stick with you guys.
Well, I just can't help think. Well, I think the number one issue, if I were somehow a political Superman and I could transcend the politics of our time, I would make one issue, the top issue for myself. Get the federal government out of education. Get them out of because of COVID, I think there's an increased attention on K through 12 primary education. Parents got to see, via the Zoom chats, what their kids were being taught. You see a whole exodus now, at least some noticeable exodus from the public school system when it comes to the lower grades in public education. I think that's getting a lot of attention now, and that's a good thing. What is not getting the proper attention is higher education. The corporate welfare that goes on to these billion-dollar endowed institutions that have, in effect, a government-enforced monopoly on higher education. We need to end, yes, as of yesterday, all government subsidies to higher education. We need to end all government involvement in higher education. When you see what happened the other day, I know I mentioned this the other day, what happened at Stanford Law School. There's a federal judge being invited. Now, when I was in law school, I got to meet, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia comes in. My constitutional law professor says, "Oh, Jim, you got to meet, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia." I'm just, wow, what an honor for him. I disagree with his philosophy completely. And yet I sat there to learn. This guy is, an important jurist. I'm a law student. I'm privileged to have this moment to interact with someone, even if I disagree with him. And then you look at these law students who are, my feelings are hurt. He's, oh my goodness, I can't handle it. They're so, little China doll fragile. And they're supposed to be attorneys. And the whole idea that attorneys are so fragile, their feelings are hurt, they're so easily triggered that we can't have, federal judge come in just because they disagree with his position. I probably disagree with this federal judge's position, but can't these students realize that as lawyers, when they go into court, it's not going to be their feelings that are really going to matter here, and that they can't just, Your Honor, this just triggers us. We can't have an alternate opinion here. No, it's insane. And just one example, going back decades, I try to go to lectures at universities, and dating back to one instance that comes to mind in the 1980s, I was going to hear an economist, George Reisman, give a talk on racism.
Love George Reisman.
I brought some friends of mine. I was working at the San Diego DA's office at the time, brought some friends of mine there, including an African-American friend of mine who was a deputy DA, who's now a judge, by the way, brought him to the thing. There we are trying to listen to this speech on racism, and the speaker can't be heard. George Reisman is being shouted down. He absolutely was shut down with protests, can't hear him, all this other stuff. You step outside. Here I am stepping outside after this disastrous, being silenced by force, mind you, in a place where there should be a free discussion of ideas. We come out, those of us who were applauding and pro, including my African-American friend, were assailed immediately. You racists, how dare you sanction this guy even speaking here? We didn't invite him. A student group invited him. We were just here to applaud. And here we are being attacked. That's the kind of insane emotionalist mentality that has taken over higher education. What federal government is doing now is subsidizing a specific ideology. It's becoming like the medieval church. And if you don't buy academia's standard line on things, especially in the humanities, which is all fucked up, fucked up fucked up. If you don't buy their party line on things, you can be excluded and it's excommunicated. We're short of the rack and the burning people at the stake at this yet, but we're one step shy of that. What we're doing is subsidizing a particular ideology, and that is as deeply offensive to me as anything can be. We really, the student loan cancellation issue that came up recently, most Americans in that issue could really see the injustice of that. Why should the ordinary truck driver, through higher inflation or through his taxes, be paying for some other dude's university education that'll give him, if he, in some cases, a much higher income than he's getting? That's just grossly unfair. Obviously, the proponents of it, and I had an argument the other day with a proponent of canceling, some leftist nut who says, cancel the debt. He can't, in his own mind, when I pointed out, well, what about these ordinary people who, through inflation and higher taxes, are paying your way? Oh, well, they're not really paying. University educations grow on trees, just like medical services grow on trees. And there's no reason why the government just can't print money that comes from nowhere to pay for all this. Literally, that's the mentality.
This is a terribly tragic situation. Paul, you better have something funny to say about it, because I'm getting depressed.
I was so calm when the show started, and then James starts talking, and I immediately want to lynch people. So James raised about 4 points in his one thing that I want to quickly hit on. One is education. And I think a lot of people think, hey, if education is important, then the government should get behind it. So I sort of have the opposite feeling. If education is important, government should stay the fuck away from it. The more something is important, the more I don't want other people voting on it. I want to be able to vote with my dollars and my own opinions. I don't want other people imposing their values. Right. So the notion that the government is involved in education, even if they didn't have the ideological biases that they do, I would find offensive. The second is the notion of heckling people and shutting them down when they're speaking, and the notion that that is a subset of free speech or a concomitant of free speech, when in fact it's the theft of free speech. I find horrifying. I think we all agree that speech should be free as long as we agree with it. It's just those darn pesky other people who have those opposing points of view. We shouldn't be required to listen to them. It is hateful and it makes me feel bad or badly. And I just don't like that. So this has gone from one of the founding principles of our country to something that, of course, I'm against hate speech. So when you put in a footnote like that, it means, of course, I'm for free speech, except I'm not for free speech. And we have to make that argument, unfortunately. The third is when James was talking about forgiveness of loans, and that's got to be paid for. I don't think people have any idea of what the source of money is. I don't think they get the idea that in order for government to pay for something, that means somebody else has paid government first, and or that the government is just printing money, in which case you're creating inflation, which hits everybody but hits the poorest harder than everybody else. So that needs to be explained. A fourth related point that James is bringing up by implication is there are people in the upcoming generations who are asking seriously, why work? What is the purpose of work? Why should I do that? Why am I simply not having a guaranteed income? They don't actually get the notion of survival and the notion that work and creating something or working for somebody who's creating something is how we earn our survival. That survival is not a gift, but it's something that we have to achieve every day or every week or every month. The fact that our schools, which are so good at what they do, kindergarten through grad school, how could they possibly be better? That they don't make it clear to people that you have to work in order to live, and what the connection is so frightening. We're so far away from a lot of the progressives basically want to go to a pre-cow farting natural world in which you live with the land and you do your communes and everything. That's their philosophical thinking. They would survive 8.2 seconds because they don't get the connection between work and survival. This creation of money, this bugbear, this awful, awful thing that allows us to trade in a way that it's impossible to trade without it, they see as a magical, evil, magical thing. Of course, it's evil unless they need money for their projects, in which case it's incredibly good and it should be stolen from the people who created it. But we have to make clear what was intuitively clear to us when we were growing up, which is, hey, there's a direct connection between these things. We work a certain amount of time or create a certain amount of value for the people who are employing us or hiring us in order to get what we call money, which we then exchange for other things because we don't all want to grow beets and non-flatulent cows in our garden.
Well, the fact that all living things have to work in order to live, Paul, was a result of the fall of man. If you remember, this is because man sinned, and now everything has to work in order to live. Everything has to suffer in order to live. And so I would say that these people don't want to go back to communes and sort of the sort of the classical agricultural lifestyle, because that's too much work. Actually, they want to go back to Eden. That's where they would like to go back to, where values do fall from trees, where everything you want is at your beck and call. Of course, they'd have to give up their consciousness and their what they actually are as living beings in order to do that, but they don't realize that.
Oh, John Galt nailed this one in Atlas Shrugged, right? It's the law of cause and effect that these idiots are really evading. You hear it in President Obama's line, "You didn't build that," to small business owners. I mean, every small business owner I know works their tail off. And, they have the same roads, the same government services everybody else does, only they created that business. So when you have Obama being that blind, and I don't think he was that blind, he's just trying to spread that kind of ignorance about how cause and effect has nothing to do with it. Your effort has nothing to do with it. Individual achievement has nothing to do with it. Or look at just the COVID lockdowns. Gee, America can lock down its economy, just, shut off most of the production of goods and services for the better part of a year. And guess what? The government, all they need to do is print all this money, send it out to the businesses we shut down, send it out to the people we put out of work. And what do you mean we need to produce stuff? You mean there's something about production? No, Paul is exactly right. These people have just completely evaded the law of cause and effect when it comes to wealth creation. And you point out, of course, it's the law of nature. It's not some mean, greedy capitalist making us all have to take effort for our own survival. It's the biology that is sort of setting that.
Hey, and denying the law of cause and effect, that doesn't help the political class at all.
Right. Yeah, part of this is an inability to think in terms of principle, because if when a deadly flu attacks us and our reaction is to shut down all, quote, non-essential, unquote, businesses, and there's no problem with that, well, why not do that when we aren't being attacked by a deadly flu? If we're thinking in terms of principles, if all you need is money, and if money is fake and it's just this agreed upon paper and there's nothing whatsoever behind it, just print those suckers all the time. And why didn't we figure this out in 1776? Why is it that we're so smart in 2020 that it occurs to us that inflating the economy is the way to go? And God damn it, we were so stupid back then in 1776. We could have been printing this friggin' money all along, and I could be the poet that God designed me to be. I also want to touch on what Mark said about Eden. The Edenic thing, the Rousseauian back to nature kind of before you eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, is so pervasive among, what's the term? Oh, progressives, who are sure that the Christian God is wrong, but they've just appropriated the worst parts of the philosophy and taken away the handsome guy with the loincloth.
That's exactly it. They haven't questioned the Christian morality, the altruist morality. Oh no, they double down on it. Now, there are the ones who have to get elected and so, give sort of mouth service to, Christianity. Nancy Pelosi will fight with the Christian right over who really owns Christianity. You mean Republicans, cutting off welfare. You don't realize what Jesus was all about, helping the poor, right? And so what they're doing is they're fighting over who owns Christianity as that moral high ground. But our more consistent, more intellectual leftist types, you're absolutely right. They'll be secular, question religion, but then, of course, unthinkingly simply adopt altruism as what's obvious, isn't it? It is obvious. All of our new atheist friends, from Sam Harris to Dawkins to whoever, they just assume that altruism is sort of built into our innate conscience, I guess. So, exactly right.
Indeed, they do. And what happens as a result? The civil wars that we see going on every day, where people like in prisons gather into gangs for self-protection and then each jostle with each other and fight for that piece of the pie that the government can give them. That's what altruism amounts to, folks. Civil war and moral cannibalism. We have another $4.99 from Ali Beard. It's called Superman Red Sun. That's correct. My friend Sam Whitwer gave me a copy of that. She has the comic. It's really good. She recommends it. Mike Millar wrote it. It's great. Go get it. Good suggestion. I might question whether it's great or not, but I see the vibe. Christopher Smith, Canadian, $2.99. Thanks, Christopher, for being a supporter of the show. Jeff Bannister, $2.50 Canadian. What is that in American dollars, I wonder? I have no kids and I have to pay for that crap. Indeed, anybody who pays property tax is paying for, ostensibly, the public school system, which I do think is a tremendous burden to some people. Some people can even lose their homes over not paying this tax, even though they've paid the bank off and officially own the home. They are still burdened, though childless, for paying for other people's educations. What say you about that? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. Paul, you want to go first? You look like
it's just so wrong. The idea that you own something but you require permission to keep it is a contradiction in terms. So if I own something, I don't owe anybody else anything for it. And houses cost a lot of money, and I'm sure apartments cost a lot of money, and it takes savings, and it takes thinking in terms of the future and denying immediate gratification and things like that. And that's an achievement, and we shouldn't penalize people for that achievement by charging them for it. By the way, this is a larger topic because these are theoretically 5 to 10 minute discussions each. But if you're going to tax, and of course you shouldn't, but if you're going to tax, wouldn't the following be logical? You figure out what the proper functions of government are, and I would argue it's the police, the courts, and the Army, Navy, and whatever. You divide the cost of that. You add up the cost of those things. You divide the cost by the number of citizens who are 18 and older, and those people get a bill once a year. And there's no other type of tax anywhere, anytime. Everybody's getting the exact same benefits from the government, no matter how much they earn, because it's the protection of individual rights, the protection of negative rights that the government is supposed to do. So rich people should not pay more or less than poor people. Everybody should pay the same for those services if they're going to do it. Again, that's assuming arguendo, the morality of taxation, which is going to be a tough one for me. But the idea of taxing property, taxing sales, taxing income, none of that makes sense to me. None of that has anything to do with the protection of rights. It should be a fixed cost that everybody pays, not a percentage of income, a fixed cost.
The income tax first came down the pike, they promised us it would never get more than, say, a little more than 1% of your income. And for several years, that's the line they continue to try and push on us. Never more than 1% federal income tax. What are you talking about?
And only 1% of your income, and only to the top 3% of the population of moneymakers. So everybody else was sort of immune from it. That's how they sold the bill of goods. That's how they grifted, folks.
And you know how they sell public education being paid for by people without children. We all benefit from a better educated. You'll get the society, and you will get the fallout benefit for having more doctors and smart people and teachers getting good education. The higher the education level, the better off we all are. Now, look at the facts, of course. Public education has had declining standards my entire life. It's been going straight into a sewer. The more per capita the government spends per child on education, the more illiterates they pump out. So, and this goes back to the idea that, the more that we need something, like, the great urgent needs are medical care and education. Now, if you look over since World War II, the two areas that have had the highest inflation, of course, eclipsing every other product or service in education, have been healthcare and education, precisely because the government has intervened. It's so important, they've now priced the middle class out of getting an education or healthcare altogether. You look at medical bills from the 1940s, where you could get surgery for a couple of $100, even in inflation adjusted dollars. That is pennies compared today. It is the direct result of government thinking, this is so important, we got to subsidize it, both in education and in healthcare, that has effectively priced out the middle class from these services.
Hey, look, you also used to have a doctor that would come to your house and make house calls back then. But hey, if you guys keep talking like this, people are going to start to get the idea that their investment in statism is really stupid. Hey, I have to jump ahead to this particular super chat. It involves you, Paul. So perk up your ears. This is from Richard Cameron for $10 so far. $10. You get the highest super chat, Paul. Someone informed Paul that objectivists aren't supposed to have a great sense of humor. You've been warned, pal.
It's one of my many flaws as an objectivist, sadly.
I am still haunted by the vision of your fake nose the last time we met, but haunted in a good way. It makes me laugh in inappropriate moments. Bonnie Bertrand for 99 cents. That's all she gave us was 99 cents, but that is a huge thank you, Bonnie, for being a contributor to the show. We really appreciate you. Louise for 20 pounds. This is great. Thank you, Lou. Lou is my tech genius and helper overall, and a new objectivist and a very enthusiastic supporter of the show. Ashley Shrugged gives us $1.99 again. Schedule more TDOs with the Three Musketeers, please. We just now got our moniker, folks.
Thank God.
The Three Musketeers.
And it has such a wonderful collectivist motto: all for one and one for all. I have to I have to say that was a brilliant new moniker, and I'm very proud of it. Besides, it has its roots in French Romantic literature, Dumas. So I'm all on board with that. Absolutely.
Big fan of the Count of Monte Cristo. I haven't read the Three Musketeers yet. Paul, have you read the Three Musketeers?
I have, a long time ago, but I'm glad we weren't compared to the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Well, Quasimodo is awesome, man. I love Quasimodo. That's one part that I would absolutely love to play, because I don't know that it's been done right. Paul, maybe you can contradict me on that.
I love the character so much. So I grew up as a monster fan, which I'm sure is a shock. And the Hunchback of Notre Dame, while not technically a monster, was sort of grandfathered into the gallery of monsters that we fans cared for. So I think a lot about acting and actors. And I've thought about the greatest performances I've ever seen. And I used to do lists of this, of Meryl Streep's best and of De Niro's best and stuff like that. It occurred to me at some point that Charles Laughton in the 1939 Hunchback of Notre Dame may have given the most powerful, most moving performance I've ever seen. So I half agree with you, Mark, in that I think it's one of the most incredible roles possible for an actor. In my opinion, it's been done incredibly well, but I would love to see other good actors do it.
See, now Charles Laughton also has my vote. However, now it could be that it's been so long since I've seen that. Now, I love him as an actor in general. He was a great actor. But when I read Quasimodo, I don't remember that strength and independence and fierceness in the character as Charlie Laughton portrayed it. And I could be, it's been 30 some odd years since I've actually seen the movie, so I'll have to revisit it and see. But that's what attracts me to Quasimodo. He is feared, he is fearsome, he is loyal and powerful, not just physically powerful, but morally powerful. And I don't know that I got that from the Laughton performance. Maybe you can tell me different.
Mark, you actually got me thinking about that, because I do, you brought I love the book, and I love the Charles Laughton Maureen O'Hara movie. And now that you say that, you actually got me thinking that was exactly the difference. That's exactly. Charles Laughton plays such great pathos and sympathy to the character, to the very last line, "Oh, why was I not made of stone next to the gargoyle?" It's just moving to me, but it's moving in its pathos. It's not moving in the, wow, this guy's got character. He's got, if I can use the term, more backbone than anyone else around him. And that really is a major theme of the book.
Except, of course, the priest who has control over him, whom he is blindly loyal to, which creates a beautiful, beautiful dynamic when Esmeralda comes into the picture, that beautiful triangle of love that he steps up to.
I'd produce the film just to have you play the Hunchback.
I would love to, but I want to revisit Laughton's version again, because it's been so long. Wait, we have another Jeff Bannister, Canadian, $2.50. Howard Rourke laughed a lot. Yes, he did. In fact, he laughed from the opening pages of The Fountainhead, and many of us forget about that. But I do think, now here I am, I'm going to start being critical of objectivist community in general, and that might get me into some trouble. But hey, Trouble is my middle name. You didn't know that, Paul, but it's true. It is my middle name. Yes, I think we need more humor in objectivism.
Yes.
Humor is the antidote to the crap we are seeing out there. It is the perfect delivery mechanism for this philosophy. It's perfect. It makes the medicine go down easily. Paul, what say you to that?
Humor is life embracing, and it has its positive aspects there, and it also has the correct negative aspects, which are that bad ideas should be made fun of. Not only should they be argued against, which they should, but they should also be made fun of. Some of the ideas that we hear should be just laughed at, and then we should explain patiently why we're laughing at them, but they should be laughed at. I mean, the notion that we can't tell if a person is male or female at birth. It's like, I'm sorry, did we suddenly become stupid? How did that happen? How did biology just take biology, by the way, was a science, I thought, and this is the party of science. But how did it take a left turn so that we kept misidentifying all these poor creatures that are being born? That's just one example. The idea that we take these ideas seriously. When I hear that math is like a colonialist construct or a white man's thing or whatever, it's like, wow, are you guys insulting everybody else? Because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing
Stop
that as
impressing me with your arithmetic, Paul.
yeah, sorry. And
Gee.
it's again the repudiation of the law of identity. If 2 + 2 don't equal 4, then A, the law of identity was just a big mistake. And B, Orwell was even smarter than we thought.
Yeah, really.
Indeed. Well, unearned
Ridicule.
unearned
More ridicule. More ridicule. Amen, brother. Testify.
ridicule them. Look, yeah, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous not to. It's dangerous to take these ideas seriously. It's dangerous to give a pathology, real psychopathology, any room to claim legitimacy, and that's what we're doing in a lot of ways. But because fear and guilt seems to be the dominant feeling out there in the world today.
And come on, is there anything funnier than an Ayn Rand party scene in one of her novels? She'll take you to, a party or a wedding or Dominique will be mingling around. And some of the funniest stuff I've ever read in a novel comes from the dialogue in an Ayn Rand novel. People do not appreciate, and this is we should get Shoshana and Lisa Van Dam, we should get some people on this, just talking about humor within Ayn Rand's literature, because it is loaded with some of the funniest laugh out loud moments I've ever had in literature. Honest to God, Francisco d'Ancona at a party in Atlas Shrugged or something like that will have me in stitches, absolute stitches. So Ayn Rand used humor, folks.
I think Rand, like any good humorist, understood psychology pretty well, and she was able to nail psychological types very accurately. And it's no exaggeration. You could think because it's a romantic type of novel and there's a sort of exaggerated flourish to some of the language, that some of the psychological elements to those villains and those characters and the people that you see populating some of these parties are exaggerated. They're not. You see them today in the woke world, in the progressive world, saying the identical things that she said 50 plus years ago, folks. It's no lie. Have we exhausted your topics? I'm a little hesitant to come up with mine after how stimulating your guys' topic was, both of your topics.
I can flap my jaw all day long, Mark. There's no end to, first of all, there's no end to my omniscience. Being omniscient, I can just summon up a near infinite variety of topics here. So, but those were the topics that I brought today.
What about you, Paul? Did we miss anything from you?
I want to save the rest for next time. I think it's time for you to unveil what you've been hiding from us and teasing us with.
But now I've built up a big expectation that's just going to fall flat. I will call this the flaccid topic. No, it's not going to be flaccid. I've been curious. Okay, here it is, and you guys can help me with this because perhaps I'm misperceiving or misidentifying things. From the conservative news folks, we are hearing that there is a power afoot in the world that we must be fearing because they are hyper dangerous. And that is, of course, the Chinese. And now the Chinese are in league with the Saudis. They're in league with the Brazilians. They're in league with the Russians. And they're all forming a network of power with Iran, with Iranian warships making their way towards the Panama Canal that we all have to be direly concerned about, in the same way that we were so concerned about the Soviet Union and the imminent destruction of mankind because they had nuclear weapons, and they were built up during the Reagan era as being this big, bad, scary monster that we had to fear. And of course, we spent lots of money and outspent them, and they crumbled to the ground because they only had 19% of our GDP. And they were not the big bad monster that everybody says. So while I'm hearing that China is the big bad monster, I'm also hearing about these disastrous demographic issues that they're having, where people are dying by the millions. They simply don't have anybody to replace them. And their economy is in actual shambles. Of course, we know they falsely built up their GDPs by building fake cities where they're like Potemkin villages on crack where nobody lives. And so their entire economic structure is a lie, and whatever advances they do make are dependent upon our innovations, which they attempt to steal. So I feel like, once again, we're building up a bear, a monster, a creature that can do harm. I'm sure it can do harm to some degree, but like an alligator, can only run about 10 yards before it gives out and goes away. What do you guys say? Do you think this Chinese monster that the news media and the political class seem bent on pushing us into war with is really the monster that they identify?
Well, I do not think that the United States should have any diplomatic relationship with any dictatorship at any time, under any circumstances. And the way, of course, the Chinese government has developed whatever actual power it does have, is by trade with us, stealing technology from us. Our sanctioning of them, in effect, is their only real resource. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. They're a basket case. Left to their own devices, they would be no threat whatever. It is only because we sanction them and subsidize their economy, subsidize their technology, and give them the time of day. Trump was, passing love letters back and forth between himself and Xi, right? And now, of course, the Democrats today are saying any Republican attack on China in any context, like TikTok, is just totally racist. And so when that's the debate, obviously we're flailing about and we're hopeless and we're not heading in any kind of right direction. But what we need is a morally principled foreign policy. These dictators are basket cases. Russia was never 10 foot tall. Ayn Rand in the 1960s predicted they could collapse without the loss of a single Western life. She turned out to be exactly right 30 years before the event. And I think the same would hold true with China. China is one of the few places in the world that still has a hard time feeding all of its people, despite all of this. So you're absolutely right. Left to its own devices, they are a basket case, would be a basket case. We just have to have a morally clear principle when it comes to not dealing with thugs of that nature.
I agree. Now, Paul, not to go there again, but hey, the gutter is where I live. Was this topic flaccid, semi, or turgid? It's up to you now.
So I was told that the correct pronunciation is flaccid, and I looked it up, and it's actually correct, even though nobody ever says it that way, because you look unintelligent if you say that. It's flaccid. Yeah. I had an actor friend who was lecturing us backstage while putting on makeup. I don't know why flaccidity came up, so to speak, but it did. So to quickly address your point, I am not as conversant with politics as I should be to be commenting, so therefore I will comment. Long term, you guys are probably right about the internal contradictions of the command economies, and the dictatorships and communism do not help them. I am concerned always when I have an enemy who declares himself as my enemy, or who I declare as my enemy, who's got atomic weapons, because I cannot always assume that they will not use them. I hope to God they won't use them. I hope to God that mutually assured destruction is still in their forefronts of their minds. But if I'm a Putin and I'm losing to Ukraine or can't take over Ukraine, I'm going to get ticked off at some point. Now, I have zero idea whether that means at some point nuclear weapons get used, whether we're going to get involved or whatever. But I don't, while not wanting to sell out anybody else's liberty, I really don't want to get in a nuclear exchange with anybody. So I want to discourage the other nuclear actors by letting them know that devastation would be sure and would be swift, and would be non-negotiable were they to attack me or my direct allies. And I would say who those allies are. and I want to do everything I can to make sure that I would be able to follow through on that threat. So it's a credible threat. And I know that we have intense pronoun problems in the armed forces, but if we could just put those aside for a moment and look at defense of the country, maybe on Saturdays we could do that, and we could make sure that we have, we can stop incoming missiles to whatever extent that's possible, and we can make sure our missiles go where they need to go, and just publicize the hell out of that so everybody knows this is what's going to happen if you try to attack us. Then they can solve their own problems or not, fall apart or not, or the freedom movements in those countries can rise, I hope to God. And I hope to God that happens without causing nuclear war, because I'm against nuclear war. It's a bugbear with me.
You're weird. That's weird.
Yeah, I know. So even though the Soviet Union collapsed, which was great in the short run, Russia's back because of Putin or under Putin, and they've still got the weapons. So I'm less interested in the ideology that's driving them than I am in the fact that I do not want to be vulnerable or blackmailable by somebody else's weapons. So whatever the armed forces have to do to prevent a legitimate fear of blackmail, I think they should do.
And in a strange bedfellows sense, I don't know if you guys are getting this impression, but I'm getting the distinct impression that Putin's nationalism and traditionalism is actually appealing to the new populist right in a way that's disturbing. I find our own political drifts towards these totalitarian states and identifications with some of their values to be particularly troubling. Even more troubling than the fact that they exist is the fact that we sort of like, or some of our politicians and pundits sort of like the things that they're saying. That's very disturbing to me. Ali Beard for $1.99. China controls how kids play video games. So yes, China does not control how kids play video games. Parents control how kids play video games, and it's time for parents to start stepping up. Daniel, yes, right?
Yeah. No, you are absolutely right. The first order of business when it comes to, and I don't care who the supplier of these video games is, the parents are the ones who should be in charge of this. It's like safety with your Hyundai, man. It's up to you. It's your health against COVID, your car's safety against being stolen. Oh, and guess what? This too. That's your responsibility, bud. Yeah.
Yeah, TikTok can't take your kid's brain if you don't let them do it. Daniel Krauss, remember, for 11 months, nuclear war is really bad for the economy. It sort of is. It's sort of bad for your day in general, wouldn't you say? I mean, it fucks up your day just overall. What do you think about that, Paul?
Just one nuclear bomb can ruin your whole day, I guess.
Yeah, I want my suntan to be an au naturel. And I don't want it to be, I don't want a Russian suntan or a Chinese suntan or anybody else's suntan. I want my own goddamn suntan.
That's right. And you want it on your own time, and you'd prefer it on a beach, preferably maybe somewhere in Hawaii or Jamaica,
yes.
not outside your front door from X-rays or whatever it is, gamma rays. Like, I don't know. Jeff Bannister, member for 10 months. Great show, fellas, assuming your gender. Sorry. Yes, we shouldn't assume this. Did he even ask what my preferred pronouns?
Did he even ask what my preferred pronouns were?
He did not, but he did apologize for it. So I think he might get a pass, but I'm not sure. Well, folks, it's been entertaining for me. I don't know about you, but of course, all that matters is that I got mine. Oh, wait, I think I have some more announcements here. Upcoming shows. So I'm going to talk about upcoming shows before we close out. Upcoming shows at 10 p.m. UK time, Life on Earth with the great Robert Nasir on danger, virtue, value, strength in the 21st century, something we truly need to hear, because the 21st century, if we were to dub it historically, would the subtitle be 21st century subtitle, the era of snowflakes? I don't know.
Could be.
It could be.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's been a great episode. I hope you guys had a good time. I think we did. Any final words to say before we bid adieu to the objectivist, semi-objectivist, and non-objectivists watching us today?
I definitely think we should do this kinky threesome again, gentlemen, as soon as possible. It really, it was good for me, and I hope it was good for you.
I'm all for it.
I'm a happily married man, so I can't talk about it was good for me.
Yes,
but if I weren't a happily married man, I would say it was very good for me.
There you go. Good. Me too. All right, folks. So if you want us to come back, the three of us to come back and harass you with our ideas, we'll do it because we like it. What the heck? And so you've been listening to the Daily Objective. This is the Thursday Collective. Come back and see us again next Thursday, or you'll get cooties or something. I don't know. If not, we'll see you some other time, folks. This is Mark Pellegrino, James Valliant, and Paul Guay saying good night and good luck.
Au revoir.
Of what?